secret of laughter lies in the laughing, not in the search for joy. It's a swallow winging on the wind, its innocence in a boy. Loo-loo-loo-lero, loo-loo-loo-lie. Joy will come to anyone whose heart has learned to fly. Loo-loo-loo-lero, loo-loo-loo-lie. Joy will come to anyone whose heart has learned to fly. Joy in the singing, not in the songs unwelcome but never crave. If you think that laughter lies in things, to things you'll be but a slave. Loo-loo-loo-lero, loo-loo-loo-lie. Joy will come to anyone whose heart has learned to fly. Loo-loo-loo-lero, loo-loo-loo-lie. Joy will come to anyone whose heart has learned to fly. Joy in the giving, not in the gaining, grasp that you'll never sing. You could win the world and still be poor, with peace and live like a king. Loo-loo-loo-lero, loo-loo-loo-lie. Joy will come to anyone whose heart has learned to fly. Loo-loo-loo-lero, loo-loo-loo-lie. Joy will come to anyone whose heart has learned to fly. Sing when the sun shines, sing when the rain falls, sing when your road seems strange. In a tempest seize the lightning flash and ride the winds of change. Loo-loo-loo-lero, loo-loo-loo-lie. Joy will come to anyone whose heart has learned to fly. Loo-loo-loo-lero, loo-loo-loo-lie. Joy will come to anyone whose heart has learned to fly. Loo-loo-loo-lero, loo-loo-loo-lie. Joy will come to anyone whose heart has learned to fly.
Rays of the One Light by Swami Kriyananda. This week, intuition is simple, the intellect is complex. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. And the following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. In the Gospel of St. Mark, chapter 10, we read a passage that Yogananda often quoted. And they brought young children to him, that he should touch them, and his disciples rebuked those that brought them. But when Jesus saw it, he was much displeased, and said unto them, Suffer the little children to come unto me, and forbid them not, for of such is the kingdom of God. Verily I say unto you, whosoever shall not receive the kingdom of God as a little child, he shall not enter therein. It has often been noted that a critical attitude tends to paralyze creativity. Good critics, for example, seldom produce works of creative genius, though their creations may be intellectually clever. The intellect separates, it analyzes, then puts things together again piece by piece. Intellect lacks intuition's flow, which descends smoothly like a river from the superconscious. Paramahansa Yogananda described intuition as the soul's power of knowing God. To receive the kingdom of God, Jesus was saying, one must do so with the openness and trust of a little child. Intellectuals may object to this statement, saying, but there must also be discrimination. You wouldn't want a person to be so open-minded that his brain falls out. The truth is, however, that the intellect can be fooled, even when it does its best to discriminate wisely. Only intuition is capable of penetrating to the heart of a matter and knowing truth from falsehood. It was the clear understanding of a child, not the elaborately persuaded intellects of his elders, that enabled the child in Hans Christian Andersen's story to cry out in surprise, "Why isn't the emperor wearing any clothes?" Therefore it was that Sri Krishna said in the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, "To you who are free from the carping spirit, I shall now reveal wisdom sublime, Grasping it with your mind and perceiving it by intuitive realization, you shall escape the evils of delusion. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind.
Michael. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
How is everybody today?
Awake and ready.
Yay. Thank you, everyone, for coming. It's a joy to be sharing this morning together. Let's begin with a reading from Whispers from Eternity. And this is number 60. With the soft finger touches of my soul intuition, I tune the radio of my inner perception. At first, I caught only the sounds of nearby experience. Then came a symphony of inner harmony, followed by sweet strains from my heart's orchestra of finer feelings. And then came the swelling chorus of my age-long cravings for thee. All these I caught on the radio of my soul as I kept tuning my perception, waiting to catch the whispers of thy voice, O guardian angel of all souls. With infinite patience, I went on tuning my radio. At last, when I was almost prepared to give up further trying, thy song burst upon my heart. Oh, let me broadcast through my every word now the chorus of thy songs. Om, peace. Amen. Well, it's a wonderful topic this morning about our intuition and the intellect. And it's an important one to discuss because it's not about throwing the intellect out or the intuition, but it's about balancing the two of them together. And in each one of us, we have a combination of both. We have that intellect, we have that reason, and we also have the intuitive feeling. And we tend to talk about the male and female energies in that way also. Men tend to have or tend to lead with that reason and that will, bless you, and that knowing. The intuitive snake. And then there's the female energies, that, again, we have both in the male and the female, but the female will tend to lead with the heart and intuition. And we often have fun together. We'll joke about this through the many years we've been together, that Daiva will come up with something, he'll say something, and I go, whoa, wait a minute, I need to see how it feels. and it's just a good reminder to balance the two. There's a joke that I found on the internet regarding this intuition topic. One day, 3 men were trekking through a jungle when they came across a violent, raging river. They had no idea how to cross, so the first man decided to pray, "Please, God, give me the strength to cross the river." Immediately, he grew enormous muscles in his arms and legs, and he managed to swim across the river in a couple of hours, nearly drowning twice. The second man saw this, and he prayed, "Please, God, give me the strength and the tools to cross the river." A boat appeared from nowhere, and he battled across the river in an hour, nearly capsizing twice. The third man saw this and prayed, "Please, God, give me the strength, the tools, and the intelligence to cross the river." Immediately, he turned into a woman. Wait, there's more. You'll like this part.
And so it begins.
She looked at the map, walked upstream 100 yards, and crossed over the bridge to the other side. Very. It was fun in preparing for this topic because as often I'll want to do, whatever the topic is, I'll want to pull all the information I can get about it. So at one point yesterday morning, I had a lot of the books written by Yogananda and Swami on this topic. Then I got on the internet, I was Googling things that other like-minded souls would say. And I go, wait a minute, I was getting so absorbed in all this. I thought, I had to remind myself, we're talking about intuition here also. We need to go inside. We celebrated just last Tuesday the anniversary of the discipleship of Swami Kriyananda to Yogananda. And it was a really fun evening. We got to hear stories about when Swami Kriyananda first met Yogananda and how Swami Kriyananda, he was an intelligent man. He was just really intelligent. And here he realized through his schooling, through what he had been through in his life, that he couldn't find God through just the intellect. And he knew he had to find somebody that could help him find God, and that was Yogananda. And it was really fun, a little vignette when Swami Kriyananda says to Yogananda, I want to be your disciple. And then later on, Yogananda asks him, he says, have you read my book, The Autobiography of a Yogi? And Swami Kriyananda said, oh yes, it's wonderful. And but then Swami Kriyananda says, oh, sir, I found several split infinitives in it. There's the intellect, right? Always wanting to lead with intellect. And Yogananda, he just didn't give it any energy, which was really lovely. He just said, that's because it has my vibrations in it, right? And Swami Kriyananda wrote, what, vibrations? I never thought of a book as having vibrations. And clearly, not only did it have the things that, the intellectual truths in it, but it had this awareness. Swami said he got this experience from this book that he had never gotten from any other book before. In doing, our intuition helps us to see that there's so much more going on than we can see, right? It's just, and our intellect would have us ignore that reality. But really, it really is a combination of the two. When you have a hunch about something, right, you take it inside and you try to feel for, is this the right thing? But then you can also go and check with different people and go, well, what do you think of this thought? So it's a beautiful way that the two can work together. In my research on this topic, I came across this book, Intuition from Starters. It's a wonderful book. And if we had enough time, I would read from the whole book during this time. But given we have limited amount of time, if you get a chance to just peruse through it, I think you'll find it really helpful. It was edited by Swami Daiva, and I wanted to just read what the intuition is. It says, intuition is the innate ability in everyone to perceive truth directly, not by reason, logic, or analysis, but by a simple knowing from within. That is the very meaning of the word intuition, to know or understand from within, from one's own self, and from the heart of whatever one is trying to understand. Intuition is the inner ability to see behind the outer forms of things to their inner essence. Such a beautiful definition. And a disciple once asked Yogananda, how can intuition be developed? It's the magic question. And Yogananda said, the best way is every time you meditate to sit calmly for a long time after doing the techniques. It is during this period that you will be able to deepen your awareness of God's presence within you. Go ever deeper in your enjoyment of that presence. And then here's another key. The longer and more deeply you enjoy the peace within, the more quickly will your intuition develop. And not only will we enjoy the peace by deepening our meditation, by sitting in the effects after our meditation practices, but what's our affirmation today? Also joy. Okay, that's the other beautiful benefit of sitting in the silence after meditation, after going deeper. And Yogananda's definition of joy was based on the great sage Shankyacharya's definition of Satchi Ananda, ever existing, ever conscious, ever new bliss. The soul is longing for a joy that just won't disappear right away, that won't diminish, right? And if we approach the path by the intellect, we try and get that joy just on the surface. How many times have we bought something and how long does it last? Maybe we buy a new car and it's just all shiny and new and lovely. And then we keep affirming, oh, look at my new car, and after a month the glow kind of goes away and it's like, but I have this new car. I should still be happy, and we show our friends and we just, whatever it is, and then you get that first scratch on the car. I remember the first scratch I got, I was like, okay, good, now I can relax. I don't have to, I can let go of all this anticipation around my new car. Yogananda spoke of this joy as ever new because it's in that deep practice of meditation when we develop that deep intuition that joy is ever existent, ever constant, always there, and it doesn't go up and down with the waves that happen in life. What keeps us from feeling that everlasting bliss is we get caught up in the drama of life. We forget that everything equals zero. And there's a beautiful story when Swami Kriyananda first started Ananda back in 1968. They didn't have a lot of resources, they didn't have a lot of money, but the first building that they agreed to build on the property was a temple, and it was a geodesic dome. And so they put all their efforts into it, probably all their resources they had. They built it, a lot of energy. Well, wouldn't you know, that night a wind comes up and knocks it over. So the next morning they go and look at it, and they notice that Swami was very inward. He didn't really say much. And then that night, as they all gathered to meditate, they could hear him praying. And one person thought he was going to hear Swami saying, oh, dear Lord, help us rebuild this temple, or how are we going to rebuild this temple? But all they heard was Swami saying, such joy, such ever-new joy, such joy. That's all he was saying over and over. And here this temple had just gotten blown away with all the resources that they ended, but not letting the waves of what happens in life just to throw us off. Again, that comes from that constant practice of meditation, that constant practice of tuning in. The willingness to live in that joy, that desire to live in that joy. A man was overheard praying. He said, dear God, if you can't make me a better person, don't worry about it. I'm having a really good time the way I am. Realizing that every spiritual growth that we take gives us also the power to take us deeper into that joy. That all the saints, when they talk about this joy, they never say, it really wasn't worth it. Don't worry about it. You can go for the other things, don't worry about this. But they all remind us that this joy is worth striving for and developing that willingness, just really going deep for it. Being centered in the heart, that's the reminder today, being centered in the heart and not just in the mind. But we have to be careful when we're centered in the heart, because in Raja Yoga we talk about emotions, right? The feeling nature can go down and out into what? Into emotion, into likes and dislikes, into the ups, again, the ups and downs. I was thinking, it's football season, and I used to be an avid football fan. I used to go to 49er games and all that. And I remember even watching them on TV or in person, I would get so excited when the Niners got the ball. I'd be yelling, go, 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 as if my yelling was going to change the story, right? We get so caught up in that. But the reminder is to take that feeling and that emotion and what? Lift it up. And that's what we're doing in meditation. We're always lifting it up. Where? To the point between the eyebrows. This is the point of that inner wisdom, inner joy, love, peace, all those qualities when we lift the energy up. And it comes from practice. That's why they say deep and regular practice. It's the same tape, unfortunately. We could just, but it works, by deep and regular constant meditation. We learn to lift that energy up to the point between the eyebrows. And from that point then, we're not forgetting, we're then remembering to balance the heart and the intellect. Because the intellect, will justify also what the heart wants. There's this story that we've told before of Joe Tish, who wasn't feeling well one day, and someone brought over a plate of chocolate chip cookies, right? And we know the rules, right? And he thought about it for a moment. He said, now, what is it that heals? Joy heals, right? And what would bring me more joy than eating a chocolate chip cookie? So it was balancing the two, realizing the two have a place for each other. Again, not throwing one out or the other. We don't be like this. But again, remembering to balance the two, the intellect and the heart. And then really, trusting the heart. As we deepen our search for truth, we don't need to figure it out. Trusting the heart, as we continue to go deeper in our practices. In the early days of Swami Kriyananda, when he lived at Mount Washington, again, he was very intellectual. He writes about that in The New Path. He was living with many other young monks. They were all really intelligent. They were approaching the path. They tended to approach the path through the intellect. And Yogananda knew this. And one day, there's a really fun story. He came into the kitchen. He turned off the lights, and he had this brown paper bag. And he pulls out of it this little toy gun, and he starts squirting, hitting it, and these little bursts of light, right, were just like filling the room that was dark, and the monks didn't know what was going on. What is he doing here? And then he shot this little man into the air, and it had a parachute, and then it went, floating down, and I'm sure there were other little things, Yogananda in his joyful spirit. But then he took Swami Kriyananda off guard. He said, "So what do you think of that, Walter?" He called him Walter, and he goes, "Well, I don't know, sir." Let's see if I wrote. He said, "Well, yeah, okay." He didn't really know what to think, but later on he realized what Yogananda was trying to help them just break that hold that the intellect has. Break the hold. And just like the reading was saying, to come to the path with that innocence, with that childlike quality that comes from the opening of the heart. Not childish, because then we'll go down, but childlike in an upward motion, upward, up here to the point between the eyebrows. Again, that can be experienced again by that deep and regular meditation. And then lastly, just remembering to love God. Just love God. There's just so many wise sayings, the world needs love today more than anything. Yogananda said, "When I'm gone, only love can take my place." And just to end with a few words from Swami Kriyananda on developing intuition, he just ends on that topic. He just ends, "So love God. This is much more important than knowing God intellectually. In truth, you can't know Him except with the heart, because God is love. You have to love Him to understand Him. Often the simplest people are the ones who are closest to Him. Don't go to those books that give you lots of philosophy, but go to those simple books that talk of the need of the heart for love and joy. When you understand that, then you will know God." So may we all know God deep in our hearts and share His love and joy in everything we do. God bless you all.
Christ walked through the crowds in Israel, and there was much jostling and clamoring around Him because He had so much of what everyone wanted. They could see in His presence the reminder of what was true from inside. And yet, from all of that jostling and all of that noise and all of that clamor and all of that effort to somehow pull on it, a woman who had a disease for many, many years came up and with receptivity touched His robe and was instantly healed. And He could feel it, and He said, "Who touched me?" What a silly question. Hundreds of people were touching Him and jostling Him. But He could feel somebody drew on the power of His presence, the power of God through Him, the light of God through Him. And the woman finally admitted, and He said, "By your faith ye have been healed. By the power of the magnetic drawing of what's available through me, you have been healed." We're in a time, I'd like to ask everybody to just stand up briefly and stretch. Do your yoga. And we can do postures, you can do pranayama, but do that which vitalizes you, draws you inward, and brings you more into the presence of Spirit right now. Feel it changing this room. And when you're ready, go ahead and be seated again. But notice the difference in your consciousness. Notice the difference in your experience of life. Now, in this state, think of others. Feel that power going out through you in response to them trying to draw on the world, trying to find some place to find more wholeness, more happiness, more love, more joy, more inner freedom. Because at the end of the day, we don't want the car, we don't want the job, we don't want the things. We want what we think the things hold and will set free in us. And if we are carrying the essence of what people want, if we are emanating what people are seeking, they'll turn and they'll draw on that directly instead of trying to get it through all the outer things. And those outer things, there's many, we usually refer in these services to very innocent outer things, such as, let me get a car, let me get a nice wife, or...
You got it. You got it.
I am happy. There may be a correlation. How did I do?
Wonderful.
I intuited
Perfect.
that. I think. But we're in a time when there is great, great need in this world. And everyone in here not only has come because they felt the power and the possibilities of the light of God through these great masters, Swami Kriyananda and the ray that is Ananda. You've come repeatedly because you don't just want to draw on it. You want to be changed by it. I went on the internet last night doing a good intellectual exercise because I just wanted to see, we have the remarkable blessing of a single book that gives us the absolute extremes of what meditation can do. He describes, Yogananda in Autobiography of a Yogi, describes where meditation can take us in our communion with Spirit. And he's got people appearing and disappearing on page 8. He's got miracles. He's got swamis who get their arms chopped off, stick them back up, and 3 days later you can't see the scar. He's got all kinds of things going on. And so, to go back and say, gosh, I wonder what meditation can do for you, and look at it through the intellect seems a little ridiculous. We already, if you practice at all, you start to feel the possibilities of what's alive inside that book. And whether you're appearing and disappearing on page 8 of your own story, you can feel that it's not that far away. You can feel that the transformations that book holds are within reach. But then what tends to happen is, because the things that are offered there are so lofty, we can tend to feel like it's that distant, beautiful Eden up on the mountaintop, and that we're in the dusty little village, and kind of go to sleep kind of where we are a little bit. And so sometimes even understanding, remembering the more prosaic or pedantic gifts of meditation are helpful. So I thought I'd just read a few of them. Physiological benefits: lowers oxygen consumption, decreases respiratory rate, increases blood flow and slows the heart rate, increases exercise tolerance, leads to a deeper level of physical relaxation. It's good for people with high blood pressure. It reduces anxiety attacks. It decreases muscle tension, helps in chronic disease like allergies and arthritis, reduces premenstrual syndromes, helps in post-op healing, enhances the immune system, reduces activity of virus and emotional distress, enhances energy, strength, vigor, helps with weight loss, reduction of free radicals, less tissue damage, higher skin resistance, drop of cholesterol levels, lowers risk of cardiovascular disease, decreases the aging process. Dr. Peter Van Houten, he said he's noticed through his 30-some years of medical practice that yogis tend to age about 10 to 15 years later than people who don't practice meditation. Cures headaches and migraines, greater orderliness of brain function, reduces the need for medical care, less energy wasted, etc., etc. And then you go into psychological benefits: builds self-confidence, increases serotonin levels, influences mood, and behavior, helps control own thoughts, resolves phobias and fears, increased emotional stability, mind ages at a slower rate, easier to remove bad habits, develops intuition, increases job satisfaction, higher intelligence growth rate, increases one's perceptual ability and motor performance. Reactions are more quick and easily and more effective to stressful events, better, more sociable behavior, less aggressiveness, require less time to fall asleep, helps cure insomnia, increases sense of responsibility, reduces road rage. I don't know how they slipped that one in. There it is. Greater tolerance, gives composure to act in considered and constructive ways, develops emotional maturity. And spiritual benefits, it helps keep things in perspective, provides peace of mind and happiness, helps you discover your purpose, increased self-realization, increased compassion, growing wisdom, deeper understanding of yourself and others, and on and on and on. Just this site had just 100 annotations and benefits. We're in a time when there's great need in the world and we have several choices. We can hide under the covers. We can pretend that nothing's happening and life is just going on as usual and will for the rest of our lives and forever. We can look out, peek out from under the covers, look around and become inert with fear. We can run around in circles and make loud noises about all the things that we should change. Or we can start to listen to the wisdom of the masters and take the intuitive understanding that has brought us all into this room, that somehow in the midst of the presence of God, in the midst of that contact through deep and profound meditation, that we can be the change, that we can act, that choice and that effort can make us into channels that will make the difference on this planet. That through our attunement, openness, intuition, receptivity to the presence of God, we will be guided moment by moment to decisions that will uplift and help this world, but also like Christ, that healing can happen by the very presence of our being there in that uplifted state. If we don't do our yoga, if we don't put ourselves in relationship to the highest gift we've been offered, if we don't reach for Kriya, if we don't do the things that make us spiritually magnetic, we can't be that change. We can't be that instrument for change. But if we do, we automatically are. And it's interesting, it's not like, oh gosh, I have to go meditate so that I can try harder. It's, I need to go meditate so that these things can happen naturally through me. Christ wasn't walking along trying to find somebody to touch. He was walking along in that uplifted state. There it was, this tremendous power trying to flow through him. It was just there in him, waiting for somebody to take and draw from it. And that's what we can become increasingly. The more we meditate, the more we magnetize ourselves as channels. When you go to India and you go to a temple and you offer yourself at the altar, the pujari, the little priest that's there, takes and ties on your wrist some string as a reminder of your offering, as a reminder of your time, your sacred time in the presence of that altar, in the presence of the deities, in the presence of God in that form. And you wear that as a reminder until it falls off. And every time you look at it, every time you feel it, every time you sense it, it reminds you of that moment. It reminds you of being in the presence of God. It reminds you of that altered state of consciousness, and it helps hold your consciousness up so that you become a channel for that in the world wherever you walk. We are in Dwapara Yuga, and we are in America, and so we are now using these as our string. This one here I received. I got tuned into this when I went down to LA for Yogananda Fest. And it was a celebration of exactly what we're talking about today, and hundreds of people came. And it just says Yogananda Fest, and they use this to let people know that they had already come in, but also as a reminder you could wear it. And so I do. I wear it with great joy. Every time I look at it, I remember that day. I remember what I'm doing. I remember the movement toward the autobiography of a yogi and Kriya Yoga. And Ananda has started a worldwide movement. I don't know if anyone here doesn't yet know, but Ananda is being recognized in November by the United Nations as a non-government organization, a formal global movement offering services to the world. And in that recognition, after that recognition, Ananda is presenting to the UN a proposal to go along with an International Day of Yoga, which already exists, an International Day of Meditation. And the assumption is that will be recognized in next year, 2018, there will be an International Day of Meditation. And Ananda is already working with spiritual leaders, mystical spiritual leaders around the globe, to create a day where there's a rolling meditation throughout the entire day, led by different great spiritual leaders around the globe. So as the sun moves, and it would be televised, of course, and networked and stuff. And so, and they call this movement Be the Change. Be the change. And there's an opportunity, everybody on their chair today has a little card, and it says, I pledge to meditate daily to open my heart and to radiate peace and harmony to all the world. And there's a little bookmark, and then in the foyer at the counter, there's a pledge card that you can make. And nobody's asking for money. Nobody's asking for those resources. They're inviting you to take and pledge your time. Pledge your energy to being in the presence of God on a daily basis, to join what is now, there's several hundred, I think there's 175,000 hours that have already been pledged and performed in this. They're seeking to draw at least 1 million hours of meditation around the globe, to unite us in this light, that we combined act as the channels for the upliftment of mankind. During Sunday service today, there will be an opportunity for everybody, as you come up to get blessed. As you turn, there will be somebody offering you a chance to have your own string tied on your wrist as a remembrance of today and a remembrance of what we do and how sacred it is to be here and the opportunity to be in that uplifted consciousness. We invite you to take it. We invite you to put it on. It says, Be the Change, meditationpledge.com. And it says, I am the change. I meditate. And it's a reminder to you, if you wear it, it's a reminder to everybody who sees you that you are actively involved on a moment-by-moment basis in helping change this world in a positive way. So on that note, we will end this part of the service. But I just want to say thank you to every single person in here for the privilege of your friendship, for the privilege of being together in this commitment to help change the world by bringing the light of God into our own lives, into the lives of our families, into the lives of all those whom we meet.